Survival tips. Hello, my friends. Welcome to The Art of Prepping. I hope everyone's doing well today. I have a medley of survival tips. I've put these tips in my own words so that I can best convey them to you. You may want to switch certain words to make them more, personal for you. But I hope that these come off as very helpful and understandable. I try to pick a wide variety of tips. And so let's just jump right into it. And I like to start out with the acronym STOP, which stands for Stop, Think, Observe, and Plan. This is very helpful in a lot of situations where there's high stress. The one thing I think about when I think about this acronym is if you get lost in the woods. And of course, you can apply it for other things as well. But when you get lost in the woods, what typically happens? The average person panics, they run around and they act foolish. Sometimes they injure themselves because they're trying to run around in a panic, trying to find the trail, and they make things worse. And what you typically find is that people get further and further away from the trail. They get more and more lost, and it's like a nightmare unfolding. And if they simply, at the first moment that they realized that they might be lost, they should use this acronym STOP. And that means literally you stop where you are. You take a seat, right? Take a knee and breathe a little bit, right? Try to get that oxygen in there. Slow your breathing, deep breaths, so that you can start to do the next thing, which is to think, what just happened? Where do you think you just came from? Where do you think you need to go? What about landmarks? Think about everything you can think about. Did you hear a sound before you got off the trail? Maybe you can start to listen for that sound so that maybe you can move toward that sound. Do you have a compass? Do you have a map? Do you have a GPS? Do you know how to navigate, in natural primitive ways? Think about all your options. You also want to think about what, in worst case scenario, if you have to camp out because you don't know where you are, and you don't want to move in a direction that you don't know where you're moving toward, you want to think about, okay, how would I set up a camp? Where would I set up a camp? Are there material support, in this area? Is there wood? Can I make a fire? All this stuff, Can I build a shelter here? And so the next part of this acronym, after STOP, think, you have observe. Observe your surrounding. Are there any threats? How's the weather right now? Is it going to rain? Is it cold? Is it warm? Is there any kind of water nearby? You're going to want to look at all these things. And just as a side note, if you are lost, and we've talked about this on the channel numerous times, it is best to stay where you are, right? But if you do need a self-rescue, maybe no one even knows where you are. Maybe you didn't tell anybody before you left where you're going. You may want to climb to the highest point in that area to look out and to get a reference. And, that might be something you just have to do. If there is no hill or mountain to climb, you might just have to climb up a tree. Climb a tree and to look out and see if you can't see anything, any landmarks that could help you get back to where you need to go. So lastly is plan. So you got stop, think, observe, and plan. And this is where you make that plan. Okay, I'm up on this tree and I can look out and I see from a distance a cabin. There's a log cabin way over there. And I'm going to make my best effort to get there tonight. And so you're going to have to come up with a plan to walk straight, because this is something that happens that a lot of people are not aware of, is that when you're walking in the woods, you might think you're walking straight, but you're walking typically in large circles. And it can be very bad. There are some people who think that they're walking out of the woods only to find themselves to come back to the same point that they've been trying to walk out of all day. So be very aware of understanding that there are techniques to actually keep yourself from walking in circles. And so some of them are very simple, by just having landmarks ahead of you and keeping them, basically in your crosshairs, kind of keeping them on target, and you visually walk toward targets. And so that'll keep you from kind of walking in circles. Okay, let's move on. The next survival tip is really about priorities of survival, right? What are they? We pretty much know for that. In the most generic case of survival, shelter is typically the first and the most important thing that you need to, look at. In some cases, though, it could be water, it could be first aid that you need. I mean, there are some cases that obviously shelter is not the first thing you would do if there's other things that are life threatening. But for most situations, if you're not dying of thirst or dehydration, and if you're not dying from an injury, or if you're not severely injured, then to put together a shelter is going to be paramount. It's priority number one, as well as staying dry and being able to make a fire. It's very, very important, especially if it's cold out. I mean, it's very important not to get hypothermic. And so to practice making fires in various conditions is very important before you even go out. Okay, another survival tip is mindset. Most of survival is mindset. And what is mindset? It's really more of a mental attitude, right? It's a mental attitude of how you view the world. And this is something that you have to work on and practice over time. If you think that you're just going to have like a really robust and super strong, airtight mental attitude when you're out lost in the woods, good luck. If you've not practiced it beforehand, your mindset will go to hell in a handbag quick if you don't have any kind of practice. It's almost like if you don't work out, you're not going to probably be very good at working out. You have to build up to that. So if you go with your friend to the gym and they're used to doing all these reps and lifting this heavy weights, and you've never done that before, or maybe you're just completely out of shape and you haven't done it for a long time, you're not going to be able to do what he's doing, right? Or that person's doing. You're going to probably maybe only do, safely just a small fraction of what that person's doing until you can build up. And the same thing with mindset. If you really don't respect yourself, if you really don't believe in yourself, if you don't even trust yourself, man, you're in a world of hurt when stress comes upon you. You're in a world of hurt when you have to deal with a real survival situation, because you're going to have to dig deep to get through some of this. And so this is a problem. There are some people who are so weak when it comes to their mindset, and their mental attitude is so negative and so fragile that they literally just curl up in a ball and just surrender to the world. They just give up living when they're faced with real challenges. And you don't want that. Another survival tip here I have is overconfidence kills. And this is a real short one, but overconfidence does kill. If you really, truly believe that you can do so much more than you really can, that's a major liability. That's majorly a dangerous thing to think and to believe. If anything, it's actually a lot more safe to actually believe that you can do less than what you can really do, because at least you're being practical and you're not going to push yourself beyond the breaking point that could kill you. But there are some people who think they can swim 10 miles without a break, and they get themselves out there and then they can't swim anymore, and they're so exhausted they can't keep themselves afloat, and then they drown. There's people who do some crazy stuff out in cold weather. They're like, I can handle this weather. And then they don't bring enough clothing, or they don't have the appropriate shelter when they go camping. And guess what? Hypothermia, they might even perish. So don't think that you're invincible. Don't think that you can conquer the world. The world is going to conquer you if you're overly confident. Another survival tip I have is that gear can't replace conditioning. And I'm talking about physical conditioning. And this is to say that you should get in shape instead of just relying on your gear. The higher your conditioning level, the more robust and adaptive you can be. So you don't want to use your gear as a crutch. You don't want to say, oh, you know what? I don't really need to work out or have some level of physical conditioning because I have these awesome tools. You know what happens sometimes when you're out and about? The tools break or you lose the tools. right? Or you might even forget about how to even use the tools properly, because there's some people who don't even practice with their stuff. Some people literally just buy things, never practice with it, and go out in the woods and they don't even know how to use it. It's shocking, but it's true. I've seen it at many campsites over my lifetime. So this is something that you do not want gear to be a replacement for conditioning, for practicing, for just overall getting dirt time, just having experience overall. The next survival tip is going to be to cover the basics. Cover the basics. And this is for everyday life even. This is not just like a survival situation per se, even though this obviously qualifies for that. But this could be just in an urban area. And so this is all about your everyday carry system, also known as EDC. And it's your front line, resource for life. I mean, it is pretty important to know that the things that you carry on your person can really help to solve problems and save your life. And we're not talking about just self-defense tools, but we're talking about tools just to get you through. Maybe you have a certain type of job and you use a certain tool. Well, it would be really nice to have it on your person, obviously. So basically, it's a very common sense tip, but a lot of people, they just don't have what they need on their person. And that causes them to be helpless and dependent on others. Okay, and the next survival tip is Swiss Army knives. They can sometimes give you the options that you need to solve problems. And I'm not saying that Swiss Army knife is the end all be all, but for some people and their needs, it could be a one tool option. Now, if you're talking about in the woods and everything, a Swiss Army knife isn't going to probably ever qualify as a one tool option. It can't be a full size saw or a hatchet, or a shovel. There are some things that, you need the individual tool. Sometimes you can't find a replacement for what you really need because a saw is a saw, and there's no way around it, but for everyday life, sometimes something as simple as just a basic Swiss Army knife can just give you what you need to get through a situation. So don't forget about the simple things, Don't forget about those simple options that you can carry on your person or that you can have as a backup that can definitely aid in a survival situation. I mean, if I was in a real survival situation, I would certainly want to have a Swiss Army knife. I mean, you can still do so much with it. Okay. The next survival tip, and this is, something that I've talked about over and over, but there's different ways of saying it. So I have 3 different ways that people talk about this. The first is cotton kills. The second is friends don't let friends wear cotton. And the last one is cotton is rotten. And so what is this all about? Well, cotton holds moisture, right? And the problem with moisture is that it can cool the body down. And that's not good sometimes because that can lead to hypothermia. And hypothermia can kill. So the whole focus when it comes to body temperature regulation and maintaining core body temperature is keeping the body first and foremost dry. And cotton doesn't allow you to stay dry very well. That's why you want to try to stick with at least your base layers in particular, some type of synthetic material that is breathable, that wicks away moisture, right? So definitely avoid cotton at all costs. And I would say for all your clothing, especially if you're going outdoors, just try not to have cotton. If you have no other options, then at least go with cotton blends that have some type of polyester or nylon or some rayon, but a blend of synthetics. But I would never go out and just wear 100% cotton if you're going hiking or something like that. It's just not smart. Okay, another survival tip is this. Don't be completely dependent on your gear. Otherwise, you won't know how to live without them. So yeah, you won't know how to live without them because you have no experience, otherwise. And this kind of is a little bit similar to the fifth tip that we talked about, which is about gear can't, replace conditioning. It's the same thing here that really your gear shouldn't replace your skill sets, right? And for those people who have like this amazing level of trust in their gear, especially electronics, one day that's going to fail you. And if your GPS, and that's the only way that you have to navigate, if it just goes out, maybe you run out of batteries, maybe you drop it on a rock and you break it, you're in a world of hurt if you're in a completely foreign area and you don't know where you are otherwise. And that's very dangerous to put all of your resources, all your eggs in one basket. So it's not smart. It's not smart to be that dependent on anything. And so let's move to the next survival tip, and that is to make essential gear highly visible. I think it's really smart, especially if you're out in the woods, and it could be something as simple as putting a little bit of paint, bright paint on some of your tools, putting a bright lanyard cord, some reflective cord, some things you can put tape on, reflective tape, or maybe it's just neon tape, whatever it is. Just make it visible. And it doesn't have to look hideous, but just find ways to tastefully make things bright. And probably the easiest way to do this is just buy gear that is already brightly colored, so you don't have to worry about it. But yeah, overall though, it's a big bonus if you can find your gear when you need it. And so it's the worst thing is to have gear that is camouflaged or that it's really dark in coloration or whatever the coloration of your environment when you're out in the woods, and you set it down for a moment and you can't find it again because it blends in. So many people that I know have lost stuff in the woods because they set something down and they cannot find it again. And this is something that, even people that are very well seasoned have run into this over and over. And so at some point, you're just going to have to get used to, having your gear marked in a visible way. Even if you just don't like the look of it to some degree, you're just going to have to kind of find a way to get around that and just have it so that you can at least find the stuff, because you don't want to lose stuff. Okay. And for a bonus, I have this last one here. Don't cook or eat where you sleep, right? So you don't want to cook at your base camp, especially if, there's like large creatures like bears in the area and big cats and other creatures that could harm you. Maybe there's wolves in the area or something. It does not make sense. I mean, even if you're just doing an overnight stay, it's still not really smart to cook and sleep at the same location. And this is especially true if you're like staying somewhere for an extended period of time. You definitely don't want to build up a bunch of scents coming from your area from making fires and cooking things. And you're just going to attract everything to your area. And in the middle of the night, you could be attacked because, man, that bear smells that fish that you just cooked a few hours earlier. And, well, they're hungry, and they're coming in. So, hey, I hope this helped on some level. It's a really fun thing to talk about. If you have any survival tips, I would love to hear about them in the comment section. Once again, I hope everyone's doing well. I can't wait until spring. I can't wait until the weather warms up. Winter has been a bit brutal in my area this year. It's been horrible, in fact. We haven't had a tremendous amount of snow and ice, but we have had our share. And I tell you, I'm just totally done with winter. I cannot wait for spring and summer. It's amazing the older you get, how the cold impacts your body. And I've noticed that in the last few years in particular, the cold really messes with your muscles and your joints. And this year it's messed with me more than it ever has. And so yeah, I just hope everyone's okay out there, getting along, just fine and everything. But just, cold weather injuries, it's a real thing, and, it's so many people overdo their activities out in the cold, and they pull muscles and they have all kinds of problems. And just be careful with that, just really be careful and do things in moderation, because the body is more susceptible to injuries in the cold. So you guys take care. Thanks for your ongoing support. Thanks for subscribing to the channel and sharing my videos and hitting the thumbs up button. I really appreciate that. And for all those who leave comments, that's an extra thank you for you guys. Sometimes it's difficult to know what people want to be entertained by, I guess, or what people want to see on YouTube. Because everybody's so different. Everybody has their own preferences and their own ideas of what is entertainment or what is a good, worthwhile video to listen to or watch. And so, yeah, if you have any ideas or any thoughts about future videos that, you would kind of like to see or hear about, please also let me know, because I'm totally all ears. Right now, I'm kind of just trying to figure out what the next video is going to be. I haven't, purchased anything in the last few months really that I want to do an overview of or review in any way. So I don't really have any kind of stuff right now in the works to be talked about. But there may be some topics that I can talk about for you guys, or we can talk about it together, and work out maybe a video topic to work on. So anyways, I hope you guys are doing good. You guys take care.